The final question that I have is, a lot of people over the past 40 years have had an understanding that the Latin Mass has been abolished, that the Church no longer wants anyone to celebrate the Latin Mass. I think over the last couple of years, maybe that has changed a little bit since Pope Benedict XVI has released the motu proprio. So has the Mass been abolished? Can a Catholic today go and fulfill their Sunday obligation at the Latin Mass? I think a lot of people think that if you go to a Latin Mass, you're outside the Church, or they affiliate you with this ultra radical traditionalist movement or something.
Yeah, and that is interesting. There still are people that actually think that the Latin Mass is forbidden, which is strange because not only has the Pope several times mentioned that he wants this Mass celebrated as widely as possible, even if it were in every parish, but also because countless bishops throughout the world have celebrated the Latin Mass, have assisted at the Latin Mass, have done confirmations at the Latin Mass, have ordained Latin Mass priests. And innumerable priests throughout the world have started to learn the Latin Mass. Still, they seem to think that it's a fringe thing, that it's not permitted, that it's something not Catholic anymore, and there could be nothing more further than the truth, because this Mass not only is permitted, but it also, for the longest time, is the Mass that all Catholics considered going home. This is the Mass they knew. This is the Mass they loved. This is the Mass that St. Francis of Assisi went to. This is the Mass that St. Bernadette went to. This is the Mass that St. Dominic Savio went to. This is the Mass that St. John Bosco said. Throughout history, this was the Catholic Mass. If you went to your local parish, it would be this Mass. If you went to the next diocese over, it would be this Mass. If you went to Rome, it would be this Mass. Whichever church you went into in the world, there would be no variation in the liturgy. It would be this Mass. Now all of a sudden people seem to think that it's not permitted, and that stems from a confusion that was started shortly after the new Mass came in, because you had so many older generation priests that did not want to switch. It was too complicated to learn the new Mass. They were comfortable with the Latin Mass and they loved the Latin Mass.
Padre Pio.
Like Padre Pio, like Bishop Fulchine, countless priests. And in order to get them to do the new Mass, they had to be told that they were no longer allowed to do the old Mass. But it was never a document from Rome. Paul VI it was requested of Paul VI that he sign a document forbidding the Latin Mass, and he blatantly said no, he could not do that, and he was not going to abolish the Latin Mass. However, on the diocesan scale, bishops were telling their priests, you know what, you can't do this Mass anymore, you've got to do this other Mass. And this began to spread the confusion that actually the Mass was abolished when in reality it never was. On the other hand, you had fringe groups who would try to get followers by celebrating the Latin Mass and by saying that everything else except this Latin Mass is evil. That is how they were able to get followers. And because they were fringe Catholics, and because they were not following the Catholic Church, that there came to be an understanding that people that celebrated the Latin Mass were not with the Catholic Church. That is no longer the case, and we need to get out of the box, and we need to realize that times have changed, and reality is what it is, that the Latin Mass is open to anybody and everybody, and that the Latin Mass is indeed Catholic.
This has been the will of the Holy Father.
This is the will of the Holy Father.
Well, Father, I thank you very much for answering some of these questions. I hope that this helps people to understand a little bit, understand the Latin Mass a little bit better, and hopefully we'll see a lot of new faces at Christ the King in Sarasota, Florida.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Father.